FC Barcelona just pulled off a move that has absolutely paralyzed the entire global soccer community. It happened just a couple of days ago, on the very same day that Jorge Messi passed away. Now, the final wish of Leo Messi's father has officially come to light, and Barca has already started taking action to honor it. And what Barcelona has now publicly acknowledged in their official statement is something that goes incredibly deep, far beyond a simple protocol condolence letter. It is the ultimate recognition of a historic journey that began with a 13-year-old boy, a single suitcase, and a father who put his entire life on the line. There is a hidden detail in that press release that mainstream media is completely glossing over, but once you hear it in full, it is going to absolutely tear you apart. The squad made a gesture tonight in Udine that absolutely nobody saw coming, and it ties directly to something that happened exactly 5 years ago. Happening on this exact same date, it elevates this whole situation into the most powerful and heartbreaking story soccer has produced all week. What exactly does that Barcelona statement say? And why does it carry so much weight? What was the final dream of Jorge Messi that the Catalan club is already moving mountains to fulfill? What did the team do tonight that left every single Barca fan completely speechless? What makes August 8th carry a massive significance that no true fan should ever ignore? Stick around until the very end, because what is coming up next is easily the most important update on Messi and Barca you will hear for a long time. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. To truly make sense of what went down today, we first have to understand who Jorge Messi really was. But the world only knows him as the dad of the greatest player ever. And as the tough agent who negotiated all the big contracts, Jorge Messi was actually so much more than just that. He was a hard-working metal worker from the streets of Rosario. Just a regular blue-collar guy who woke up early every single morning for the factory, while his young son was outside kicking a ball in the dusty neighborhood fields. A father who realized one day that his little boy possessed a gift so extraordinary that nobody in Rosario could even put it into words. But along with that gift came a growth hormone deficiency, requiring expensive medical treatments that his family simply could not afford. The local Argentine clubs all looked the other way. Newell's Old Boys, where Leo played, slammed the door shut, and River Plate wanted nothing to do with him. No one in Argentina was willing to bet on a tiny kid who needed daily painful injections just to reach a normal height. And that is when FC Barcelona entered the picture. A legendary club from across the Atlantic Ocean that stepped up and agreed that, if the boy proved his worth, they would cover the entire cost of his medical treatment. This is exactly where Jorge Messi's journey turns into something truly legendary, because he did not hesitate for a single second. He packed their bags, grabbed his 13-year-old son, and crossed the vast ocean. He left his wife behind in Rosario, left his other children, and walked away from his job. Walking away from his entire life was the only way to get Leo to Barcelona and secure that one vital shot. Can you even begin to fathom what that takes? Leaving behind everything you have ever known to sail across the world with a young child who has potential but has not proven a thing yet, driven entirely by the fragile hope that a foreign club would actually keep its promise. That is exactly what Jorge did, and those initial months in Barcelona were absolute hell, living completely isolated in a tiny apartment. No close family, absolutely no friends, a massive language barrier to navigate, and the suffocating pressure of a giant club demanding instant results. Leo himself has opened up about this with a raw honesty you rarely see from superstars. He admitted that he would lock himself in his room and just cry alone. And his father was doing the exact same thing in his. Both of them putting on a brave face just to protect each other. A father and son, isolated in a strange city, weeping in separate rooms so they would not break each other's hearts. That was the incredibly harsh reality they faced in Barcelona. But they fought through it together, just like they always did. But I still haven't told you the most incredible thing Barca did today. Once you hear this, you will fully understand why this date is going to be etched into the club's history forever. Tonight, FC Barcelona is playing in a friendly pre-season tournament over in Udine, Italy. Just an exhibition match with 0 points on the line and absolutely no pressure for a result. But right before the opening whistle blew, Hansi Flick's squad did something that completely caught the fan base by surprise. The players walked onto the pitch wearing black armbands, and the entire stadium fell completely silent for a minute of tribute to honor Jorge Messi. This was a simple factory worker from Rosario who never played a single minute of professional soccer, never scored a goal, and never made the sports headlines. Yet FC Barcelona, one of the most powerful and massive institutions on earth, paused their entire night just to pay him respect. That gesture alone shows what his legacy means to this team, but the story goes even deeper than that. According to direct inside sources close to the club, the ultimate dying wish of Leo's father was actually centered on his grandchildren, Leo's own kids. He wanted them to return to Barcelona, specifically to La Masia, the legendary academy where Leo himself was raised. The very place where Jorge believed his son absorbed the deep lifelong values they had worked so hard to instill in him. They sacrificed absolutely everything so that a 13-year-old Leo could actually make it to professional soccer. Jorge would never forget how Barcelona stood by Leo without demanding a single thing in return. They raised him, paid for his costly growth hormone treatment, and never asked for anything back. Barca gave him a home, fame, money, and solid values, everything a father wants. Now, as a grandfather, he wanted that exact same foundation for his own grandkids. He wanted them to leave Miami, return to Barcelona, and let his young grandchildren grow up inside La Masia, soaking in the exact same values their father did. There is actually more, because the official Pasivolo put out this afternoon is definitely not your average, routine announcement. There is one specific sentence in that statement that the media completely glossed over, and I really want you to listen to it very closely. Barcelona does not just say they are deeply saddened by the passing of Jorge. The club explicitly thanks Jorge Messi for his deep, long-term commitment, expressing immense gratitude that he trusted them with the raw beginnings and the absolute prime years of his son's legendary career. Pause for a second and think about that. Barca is publicly thanking a father who is no longer here. They are thanking him for placing his trust in them when literally nobody else would. For bringing them that quiet kid from Rosario when he was only 13, with absolutely zero guarantees, no safety nets at all, just a rare talent that the rest of the world had not yet seen. When was the very last time you saw a professional soccer club actually thank a parent? When was the last time an official press release from a massive global powerhouse actually acknowledged the vital, quiet role of someone who never even stepped onto the pitch as a professional player? That is exactly what Barcelona did today, and they did it because Jorge Messi truly and deeply deserved it. But I still haven't told you the most mind-blowing part of everything that went down today, because there's one critical detail that the mainstream media is completely failing to put into perspective. Something that once you hear it, will make you realize today is much more than just a simple farewell. This is the final closing of a circle that started over 25 years ago. There is a specific detail about Jorge and Leo's history in Barcelona that the entire soccer world sort of knows, but they never really tell it with the deep respect it deserves. Messi's very first contract with Barcelona was not signed in some fancy office. There were no highly paid lawyers, no agents, and absolutely no complex penalty clauses. It was scribbled on a simple paper napkin in a local restaurant. Carlos Rexach, who was the sporting director of Barcelona at the time, was sitting right there. He watched Leo train for just 15 minutes and immediately knew that what he was looking at was something the sport had never seen. He could not wait for the club's slow, tedious bureaucratic procedures to run their usual course. So he grabbed the nearest thing within reach, a paper napkin, and wrote down that Barcelona officially committed to signing Lionel Messi right then and there. Jorge Messi kept it. That napkin is real, fully documented, and represents arguably the most important, legendary artifact in modern soccer history that is not currently sitting inside any museum. Because without that specific napkin, without that split-second, sudden decision from an executive who trusted his own eyes, the soccer world might never have known Lionel Messi. Do you actually know what shocks me the most about this entire story? Jorge Messi actually accepted that crazy deal. A simple metal worker from Rosario, who had walked completely away from his job, his family, and his entire life just to bring his son across the planet, actually agreed to sign that life-altering contract with one of the absolute biggest clubs on earth on a flimsy piece of paper. Jorge was not looking for ironclad legal guarantees. He was simply looking for a real opportunity, and that was exactly what Barca gave him. La Masia did the rest. European soccer's most famous academy took in this incredibly shy, quiet boy who barely spoke, who used to cry alone in his room when nobody was watching, and transformed him into the absolute legendary player the entire world is mourning today. Xavi, Iniesta, Puyol, Valdez, and Pique, they all came through La Masia before Leo, but not one of them arrived at the legendary academy under the exact same difficult circumstances Leo did, arriving at 13 with his father by his side, carrying a severe growth hormone deficiency that nobody back in Argentina wanted to pay for, and holding a contract literally signed on a napkin. That is what Barca received back in the year 2000, thanking Jorge for it in today's statement. What was the real dream of Jorge Messi? Not the narrative that sports journalists love to make up, and certainly not the commercialized dream you see plastered across today's headlines. His actual dream. The one Jorge carried deep inside his heart ever since his days working as a humble steel mill laborer back in Rosario, watching his young boy kick a ball on the dusty neighborhood dirt fields. Jorge Messi's dream was incredibly simple. It was the exact same wish any loving father has when he looks at his kid and sees something truly extraordinary. He just wanted Leo to have the best possible shot. That was all. No money, no fame, no newspaper front pages. He just wanted his son to develop that raw talent nobody in Rosario could explain, yet everyone who actually watched him play immediately recognized as something the game of soccer had never witnessed before in history. And Barcelona was the absolute only club in the entire world willing to grant him that chance. They were the only ones who said yes when everyone else flatly refused. They were the only ones who bet on a 13-year-old with growth issues and impossible talent, the only ones who signed a contract on a restaurant napkin because the promise could not wait. And Jorge Messi fully kept his end of that bargain. He delivered his son, choosing the club for his boy. He stayed close during those brutal months. He wiped away his tears when no one was looking, giving him strength when exhaustion and deep homesickness threatened to break him. And Barcelona held up their end of the bargain. Leo received the precise medical treatment he needed while growing up inside La Masia. They handed him his first team debut at just 16, watched him score his first goal at 17, and ultimately transformed him into the greatest legend the sport has ever seen. The lifelong dream of Jorge Messi actually came true. It happened in a way that he could never have imagined back, when he packed their bags in Rosario with his 13-year-old son. 8 Ballon d'Ors, 4 Champions Leagues, 10 league titles, and 1 World Cup. That is the legacy Jorge watched grow from the moment he made that life-changing decision. Today, Barcelona honored him by wearing black armbands on the pitch. They held a minute of silence out in Udine and released an official statement thanking him for trusting them with his boy. But here is what everyone else is completely missing. No Barcelona fan ever expected to see this specific reaction, coming from the most unlikely place in the sporting world. Do you know which club was the very second to release a public statement after Jorge passed? It was not Argentina, nor Inter Miami, nor even CONMEBOL. It was Real Madrid. Yes, Real Madrid, the exact club that served as Messi's most bitter and relentless rival on the pitch for 21 long years. The club behind those El Clasico battles that felt like war, run by Florentino Perez. The club that spent 2 decades trying everything to stand taller than Messi, but completely failed. Today, that exact club put out a formal release, mourning Leo's father, signed by their president and board. Real Madrid stated that their president and board deeply regret the passing of Jorge Messi, the father of Leo. They offered their deepest condolences directly to Leo, his family, and his loved ones. May he rest in peace. Just think about what actually went down. Florentino Perez, the president who spent years trying to sign Messi but never could, sends his deepest condolences to Leo on the day his father passes away. Real Madrid, the club that suffered defeat after defeat against Messi at the Camp Nou, completely halts its daily business to publicly acknowledge what this father meant to the sport. This is no empty gesture. It is proof that soccer has moments that rise far above any sporting rivalry, and it goes deeper. Sources close to the Real Madrid locker room claim multiple players fell completely silent when their first heard the tragic news early this morning. Vinicius, who has known Messi since his teenage days in Brazil and has always openly admitted how much Leo influenced his own career, he was first to react inside that locker room, sending a private text directly to Messi the moment he heard. Direct, heartfelt words from someone who knows the heavy pain of losing a person who was your entire world. Modric, now 40 years old and having battled Messi for more Ballon d'Or trophies than almost anyone else in history, he posted a simple picture of the two of them together after a Champions League match, writing no text at all, just the image, because some moments are beyond words, and a photo says everything. Meanwhile, Bellingham, the kid who has spent 2 seasons chasing the legacy Messi held for 20 years, broke his usual social media silence with a tribute that stunned the soccer world, saying Jorge Messi was the kind of father every young player dreams of having, that behind every great player, there is always someone who made it possible, and that behind the greatest of all time stood a man who sacrificed everything so his son could become everything. That came from Bellingham, the rival, the heir apparent, wearing the iconic number 10 shirt Messi never wore in Madrid. Do you realize what this means? On the very day Jorge Messi passed, both Real Madrid and Barcelona spoke with one voice, agreeing that this man deserved every bit of respect. Such unity has literally never happened in the history of the sport, but the reaction that hit me hardest was not Madrid's. It was the collective response of the game itself. It stopped completely. That is not an exaggeration. It is exactly what happened across Argentina, where Saturday matches began with heavy moments of silence in every single stadium across the nation. From the top flight down to the lower divisions and local youth leagues, Newell's Old Boys, the club where Leo first kicked a ball, lowered their flag to half-staff at the Bella Vista training grounds. That red and black flag flies over the very pitch where a young Lionel Messi used to practice as naturally as he breathed. At Grand Dolly, that humble neighborhood team where everything started, and where Jorge coached local kids long before anyone could have guessed his own boy would change the global game forever, a tribute was posted that completely broke the hearts of everyone who read it. They shared that Jorge was a fundamental part of their history and a dedicated coach, helping guide the very first steps of a young Lionel. Today, everyone back at Grandoli is holding you tight, Leo. We remember Jorge Messi, just a neighborhood youth coach from a dusty club in Rosario. The very same father who would later sit across the table from billionaire owners, negotiating contracts worth hundreds of millions of euros with global giants. He started out just showing neighborhood kids how to kick a ball. Underneath all the fame, that was the real Jorge Messi. Chiqui Tapia, the head of the Argentine Football Association, put out a statement that left the entire nation in tears. He wrote that Jorge did not just give us the greatest player to ever touch a ball, he raised a decent man, someone humble, deeply respectful, and always bound to his community. In this modern, cold-hearted soccer industry, that character means more than any Ballon d'Or. From CONMEBOL to the Spanish Federation, to Argentina's national squad, and Inter Miami, the whole soccer world spoke his name today. Jorge, a quiet steelworker from Rosario whom absolutely nobody had ever heard of until his boy went out and changed the game forever. And there is one critical detail we really need to remember right now. Messi played the 2026 World Cup knowing his father was critically ill. When he scored against Algeria in that emotional opening match and broke down in tears like we had never seen before, the whole world wondered what was wrong. He later explained it himself in the mixed zone, his voice cracking with heavy emotion. He muttered that he had been going through some tough, complicated days. It was something completely separate from soccer, entirely separate. Only now does everyone understand what he meant. Leo played that entire tournament with his heart completely torn in two. He carried the crushing weight of being the absolute best in the world on the biggest stage of his life, all while living in constant fear that his dad would pass away while he was on the pitch. Yet he pushed through, just like Jorge taught him. There is another piece of information coming out of the Argentine media today that we need to look at closely. Messi had only just returned to training with Inter Miami a few days ago. Right after that intense World Cup final, Leo flew straight home to Rosario. He spent more than a week by his father's side, 10 whole days alone with Jorge. Those close to the family described that final visit in hushed tones, using the kind of words you save for moments too heavy to put into detail, saying the two of them talked for hours, that it was deep and incredibly long, and that Jorge, who was already incredibly weak, found some last surge of strength just seeing his beloved son again, knowing he had fought hard at the World Cup and left absolutely everything out on the pitch. The quiet little boy he had taken to Barcelona decades ago had finally gone as far as Jorge always believed he would. Leo eventually had to fly back to Miami on July 29th. Exactly 10 days later, Jorge closed his eyes for the last time. The moment the devastating news reached him in Florida, Messi boarded an emergency flight straight back home to Rosario. That is how the greatest player in history reacted today. He walked away from practice, left the club behind, dropped everything, and rushed back to Rosario, the exact place where his story began. It was the same dusty neighborhood field where a tiny kid named Leo Messi used to kick a battered ball around, while his father stood on the sidelines, Fetz quietly convinced that this little boy would one day show the world something it had never seen before. And Jorge was right. But the most stunning part of this story is something I have not even mentioned yet. It is a chilling coincidence of dates that no Barcelona fan can possibly ignore, and it is the real kicker here. August 8th, 2021. Do you remember that exact day? Of course you do. It was easily the darkest, most painful day in the modern history of Barcelona. The agonizing afternoon Messi stood before the global media inside the press room, eyes completely bloodshot and tears streaming down his face, to announce that he was being forced to leave, that the very club which gave him everything, the institution that helped him become a living legend, where he first arrived as a 13-year-old boy holding his father's hand, could not afford to renew his contract because of a financial disaster. Messi wept openly during that press conference, with the kind of raw, uncontrollable grief that few grown men ever show in public, completely unable to hold it back, feeling the sheer agony of losing the one thing he should have kept forever. That tragedy happened on August 8th, 2021. Today is August 8th, 2026, exactly 5 long years to the very day. And once again, Messi is crying. Not for a team this time, but for his dad, the man who brought him to Spain in the first place. The same father who held him close when they both cried in different rooms during those lonely first months adjusting to life in Barcelona. The same father who watched every single goal, every Ballon d'Or, and every trophy from the front row, dedicating his entire life to making sure his son could become everything he was meant to be. 5 years after the saddest day in Barcelona history, the entire soccer world is weeping for Messi once more. And Barcelona, who failed him in 2021 for massive financial reasons, they still deeply regret today, showed up today wearing black armbands, holding a solemn minute of silence, and putting out a heartfelt statement thanking Jorge for trusting them with his boy all those years ago. On August 8th, 2021, Barcelona lost Messi forever. On August 8th, 2026, the club did everything they could to stand right by his side. Fate does not just make up these coincidences, it uncovers them, and when they hit, they are so heavy that you do not need to say another word. There is a quiet question that many Barcelona fans are asking themselves today, not quite daring to say it out loud. Does the club actually owe something to Jorge Messi? The simple answer is yes, and deep down, Barcelona knows it, because what Jorge Messi handed over to the club during his lifetime was absolutely priceless. He gave them the greatest player in history. He gave them 21 years of beautiful soccer that the entire world stood back and admired. 672 goals in that famous jersey, 10 league titles, 4 Champions League trophies, and 6 Ballon d'Or awards won with Barcelona. It gave a distinct identity to a club that, for 2 straight decades, became the most admired team on earth, not just because they won, but because of the breathtaking way they played. That beautiful soccer, that mesmerizing tiki-taka, a game that enchanted entire generations. It absolutely needed Messi to exist in that breathtaking way, just as Messi needed Barcelona to truly become Messi. That perfect, deep symbiosis between a young boy from Rosario and a legendary Catalan club all started with father's brave choice. The tough decision to cross the Atlantic with only one suitcase and a lot of hope. And when Barcelona says today that they are deeply grateful for Jorge's commitment in trusting them with both the early steps and the absolute golden years of his son's historic career, they are not just following protocol, they are being honest, openly recognizing what Jorge accomplished. They are declaring through the formal words of an official statement that they understand perfectly. Without Jorge, there would be no Messi, and without Messi, FC Barcelona would never be the legendary club it is today. That is exactly what the leaders of Barcelona said to Jorge today. Just 4 hours after his tragic passing, marked by a black armband, a solemn minute of silence in Italy, and an official statement that the entire soccer world will remember for a long time. And there is one more thing that must be said before we continue, because today, on the dark day when the father of the greatest player in soccer history passed away, a single phrase echoed across every Argentine media outlet, summarizing the truth far better than any analytical breakdown ever could. That profound statement came directly from Newell's Old Boys, the beloved club in Rosario where young Leo first started playing. They stated that Jorge was the ultimate foundation, and the person who guided, with vision, rigor, and deep affection, the career of the greatest player of all time. Vision, rigor, affection, those three simple words define the essence of Jorge Messi far better than any dramatic newspaper headline ever could. He had the vision to cross the Atlantic when nobody else was willing to. He had the rigor to stand by his son every single day without ever giving up. Even when those brutal first months in Barcelona made everything seem so possible, and he kept the deep affection of a father who never stopped being just a dad, even as the world tried to make him an agent, a businessman, or a public figure. Jorge Messi was just that, right until the end. Simply a dad, the absolute father that the game of soccer could ever ask for. And today, the entire sport finally recognized that truth. From Rosario to Barcelona and from Buenos Aires all the way to Madrid, from Miami to Udine, where 11 starting players for Barcelona wore a black armband in his honor before the referee blew the opening whistle. That 13-year-old boy who first arrived in Barcelona alongside his father with just one suitcase ended up becoming the greatest legend in the entire history of the club. The devoted father who made that historic journey possible passed away today, but the incredible legacy they built together is never going to disappear. Not ever. Now I want to ask all of you, do you think Barcelona's gesture today, wearing the black armband and holding a minute of silence in Udine, was the proper tribute that Jorge Messi truly deserved? Are you surprised that Real Madrid, their eternal rival, was one of the very first to release an official statement? And do you believe that Leo Messi will return to Barcelona one day, even in a different role, as a tribute to what his father helped build there? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to read what you think. And if you are watching this from Argentina, please know that we send our deepest condolences for this loss. Jorge Messi was proudly from Rosario, but the things he accomplished truly belong to the entire world of soccer. Give this video a like if you believe Jorge Messi deserves to be remembered by the global soccer community, not just as Leo's father, but as the visionary man who made everything possible. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on that notification bell. That young 13-year-old boy arrived in Barcelona with nothing but a suitcase. The loving father who brought him there passed away today, but the incredible legacy they built together is never going to disappear. No matter how many years go by, rest easy, Jorge. The beautiful dream you had back when you were just a metal worker in Rosario, watching your son play on the dirt fields of your local neighborhood, has come true. It came true in a spectacular way that no father could have ever imagined, and the club that made it possible finally thanked you today. That is what happened on August 8th, 2026, and it is the truth that absolutely nobody else has explained to you with this clarity until now. There is one more thing that deserves to be said before you close this video, because there is an image that the soccer world won't forget for a very long time. The players of FC Barcelona standing united inside a stadium in Udine, Italy, with a heavy black armband wrapped tightly around their left arms. They were not playing a final, they were not playing a Champions League match, they were not playing for any result that actually mattered, but they wore that armband as if it were the most important thing in the world, because to them, it was. Because when soccer is truly great, it is never measured simply by goals and trophies, but by profound, silent gestures just like that one. By holding a quiet minute of silence inside an Italian stadium, honoring a humble worker from Rosario who crossed the vast Atlantic with his 13-year-old son and changed the sport of soccer forever. Jorge Messi did not need anyone to remember him this way, but he fully deserved it, and Barcelona recognized that today. That is the only thing that truly matters. Yeah.